But I'm sure if you're doing something that you like, you'll go a long way forward. So while financial is important, but learning also is important. If you continue to learn, you will find that growth. Insurance has also been traditionally sold because of what consumers understand, trying to fit into those buckets. I don't think there's always going to be an attempt to stand out because it's a market that is enough room for everyone, there's enough growth. The content and the story is definitely above that stuff.
Hey there, welcome to Marketing Mavericks with IndieFolio. Today we have Sapna Desai with us, the Chief Marketing Officer at Manipal Signa. Sapna's experience spans over 2 decades, where she's worked with some incredible companies like Ogilvy, ISB, ING Vyasa, and of course Manipal Signa. I'm excited to unpack her journey and learn a lot about selling and marketing insurance to consumers in India. Thanks a lot for your time, Sapna, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Kavan. I'm looking forward to this.
Brilliant, brilliant. The first thing I'd like to get into, Sapna, is understanding when did you decide that marketing is going to be your career choice? If I'm not wrong, way back in 90s, you had actually done an MBA in marketing, and I think that time that was really, really new from what I know. So, how did you decide that that's something you want to do way, way back in college?
Wow. Okay, you want me to go there? Uh, like if I really think about it, I think when I was in school, I used to like the art subject as much. Like so I used to like literature. I was really good in history, and people ask me like really why, but I loved history. I like literature, and I was equally good at science and maths. So I think, but I do feel that I liked the art subjects more. So I enjoyed literature. I used to read a lot. I still read a lot. So I used to like that whole space. And I think, when you get good marks or stuff, so at that time going into an arts field was like, you got good marks. So, it's either science or commerce. My father was a banker, so I landed up in commerce. So it was pretty random. I mean, really, there was no plan as such. So I did my, MBA. I mean, I did my graduation in commerce actually, but I hated the accountancy, and I knew that was so it's by elimination. So I knew that was not it. So that part got out. I suddenly got very interested in tech. I did a lot of computer courses. There was some scholarships that I got, and I was programming, and I was doing suddenly a lot of tech. So I did my first management training program just out after commerce with DPL Mobile in Mumbai. So I joined them, as a part of the technology team actually, called a customer acquisition group. And I think that for me, and I'm still connected with that whole group of people, fantastic people, was my first inroads into this space, into working. And interestingly, that was the time when they were actually introducing mobile phones, and it was the first time you had these really big, handsets, and you were trying to sell the concept of, a mobile phone. And so I was a part of the tech team, and we were doing a lot of road shows, a lot of exhibitions, and I was given this handset to go around selling, and soon it became that I became very popular because I managed to get the first couple of sales for the organization. Being in the, they sent us on the floor. Uh, so I think that got me really interested in this space. Um, Actually, more from sales and marketing, and also then being part of the technology team, I started writing call center scripts. So I was part of the whole operations group, but then I'm writing call center scripts and so on. So eventually got into a lot of stuff which you call marketing now, and so I think that's how it went. And then I decided to do my MBA, and I think by then it was clear that I will do it in marketing, and then the journey was more clearer. Yeah.
Very interesting. Well, I think, I've heard a lot of CMOs telling me they've sold products under the sun, did sales, or they were on the agency side. But
Hmm.
doing tech first and then getting exposure to marketing is definitely very unique. I see that, you ended up even starting your career with a company like Ogilvy. And I think, and you went back to it, after some stints in other companies. So, what do you recommend to a lot of young marketers today, right? Do you think you should first do like a traditional sales job to learn how to sell first, or should it be more towards working in an agency where you get like cross industry exposure?
Actually, see, I think now what marketing today is very different. If I would even take it 10 years ago, and if you ask me this question 10 years ago, I would say yes. Take some time with an agency, come back to marketing. Because marketing was more about communication. It's more about creating. It's more about Then I feel while that is equally important now, and also I'm seeing agencies evolve, but marketing has evolved to being much more than just communication. At least in the space I work in, and the sector that I work in. And I think for that, a sales experience is a very good experience for a marketer. Ultimately, I feel in today's world, marketing has to not just communicate and advertise, which are of course part of the job, but take a value proposition to a consumer, right? And it has to enable business and growth. So you are actually driving growth, you're driving business, and also be accountable for profitability of the organization. So you need a lot of understanding of the sales, the business, those dynamics, as much as you need the understanding of how to take the value proposition to the right consumer. If there's a choice now, I think I would recommend get some sales experience and then step into marketing. Do a product marketing experience, product development experience, step into marketing. And I know many organizations which actually have this like part of the whole program. Like if you say we work at UL, also if you see Asian Paints, so there's a lot of movement between sales marketing, and you cannot really stick in one job for a long time, and you should keep evolving your career.
Very interesting. I think I completely agree. I do sales at my company also, and I
Hmm.
think if you are able to talk to a consumer, get a lot of no's and yeses, and understand why, it really builds that intuition as to kya chalega, in the market. And I think it's difficult to do that as a marketer at the onset because you're not immediately getting feedback. That feedback loops longer. Another thing on your journey, Sapna, I happen to be in the age group where a lot of people have studied something, they worked, and now they are like, nahi acha lag raha hai, and you just said you kind of went through something similar where you did technology first. Now, there's a lot of apprehension, there's a lot of risk attached to making a move. They are like, yeah, 3 years experience will become zero, I'll start from scratch. What was going in your mind, and what would be your advice to people who don't like what they studied, don't like what they worked for the past 2 3 years, and want to make a switch? What's the right mentality to have to do that?
I would say, Kavan, the faster the better.
Okay.
If you know it, and if you have realized it, I think you should make that switch. I'm sure everybody has different journeys, but I'm sure if you're doing something that you like, you'll go a long way forward. So instead of looking at the past, you rather spend time thinking about the future, and you'd rather be in a space that you feel you're contributing well, and you're enjoying yourself, instead of it being a drag on you. So it's okay. I mean, life, it's a long life. Everything doesn't have to be achieved too fast. A little bit of patience goes a long way. Especially for today's generation. So yeah. So, but it's good to move on. If you figure it out, make a shift.
But the scariest part here is to talk to your mom dad and tell them, yaar mujhe ye karna hai. How did you tackle that? Because now I feel there are so many examples where people are like, chalo, this is fine to do, but in the 80s and 90s, it's like impossible. So did you face any challenge there, or how did you convince them?
Yeah, taking me a long way back. But see, for me, even working was a big no-no when it came to mom and dad. So,
Hmm.
you're talking about different barriers that you had to break.
Wow.
So honestly, they didn't really care at that stage. I mean, they didn't know what I was doing, why I was doing what I was doing. So in a way, good. They were always supportive. But
Right.
you're right. I mean, I understand today's parents is different breed. Maybe I am one of them. But you know, so I think the convincing will come, and they actually ultimately also want to see you happy.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so I think that is the key thing. If you
Right.
have a plan and you're able to kind of show that, to your parents and work towards it, because see, the other part is also true. It shouldn't come out as frivolous.
Hmm.
you know okay, I'm trying this now, I'm trying this and I'm trying this, then it's a different story. Then you're like really being frivolous about it. You have to stick to something to know, either know it's for you or not. So you can't decide that in maybe 6 months, 1 year also. So I think it's actually both sides of the coin. You have to know that this is not, but you have to go through the process of elimination. You have to give it your all and try it out, which I did. I mean, you know, like when I was in my commerce, I really studied hard to understand the accounting principles and the balance sheet. And, it's not that I didn't do it. I just realized I didn't like it as much as I like something else. So I guess it's a process, Kavan. There's no one answer.
I think I really relate to what you mentioned about really experimenting, failing fast to understand what you like. Because once you know that, you can make a plan and work towards it. I think what happens often these days I see is people get this feedback, it's okay, you don't know what you want to do. It's okay if it takes time, but it makes them lazy instead of making them actually impatient about trying various things. So the feedback's taken it as, I don't know, it's okay, the world will change, but it should be, I don't know, so I should immediately change myself to know what's the right path to double down on.
No, that's very true. It shouldn't be an excuse for no hard work. It shouldn't become as a laziness or an excuse. True.
Absolutely. One last thing, on your journey here, I wanted to ask you. There's a very common, thing going on in our generation, which is the best way to earn more, grow fast in a professional career is switch jobs. You'll get a designation bump. You'll, keep on growing more and more. But when I look at your background, I think you've stuck to one company for more than a decade. You started at a certain mid senior to senior position, and now you're the CMO. I also have seen the similar pattern with a lot of CMOs I interview, right? And that's a big contrast to what a lot of other youngsters are really saying. So, as an entrepreneur, when I also hire, it is pretty daunting for me. I mean, I don't expect people to stick along for a decade anymore. I know the world's different, but if you're changing every 1 2 years, that's so risky for me to give a leadership position to someone to build a culture. Like, एक साल में culture क्या build करोगे, right? What do you have to say about that, and what's your stance there?
It's a very interesting topic, and okay. So you know what? I have also seen many journeys of people along the way, and I think there are 2 points that I want to kind of share. One is that nothing happens in 1 year, like really nothing, except maybe you get a 30% jump or whatever in the next job. But then what, and the second thing, I think in a career, if you want to take on higher roles, while financial is important, but learning also is important. So if you continue to learn, you will find that growth.
Yeah,
But if you kind of just shift, organizations, and your learning stagnates, so how is that going to really help you eventually
right,
to
right.
build a career that you want? I mean, this is in hindsight, okay? So not necessarily that you're going to I mean, when you're in the field, you get tempted uh, by a movement and you get excited, or you get disillusioned because not every year is great for you, right? So people, I think the resilience levels to stick on is also low. They're like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
पर कुछ नहीं हो रहा, I'll go out. You know, so it's like people don't want to give it a shot. Work through it. Move, and that itself teaches you a lot. How to navigate. Different phases in a career, and you don't get it if you don't stick around at least for a while. So there are a lot of benefits of A. I'm not, so again, this is an answer that is going to be different for each individual.
Right.
But, I think it's very important to make sure that you're continuously learning. And,
Yeah.
and you're in an organization where you are getting those opportunities to up your skills, and, organization is giving you those chances. And that's where I think I've been fairly lucky. I mean, I'm here for so long because it's been a growth journey. And I guess I think that it has to play both ways. So it's the organization that you're in, it's the person that you're in, and ultimately not just focus on the final take home only by the financial, but also with the aspect of learning.
Fully agree with you. I think, I always say, as you mentioned, learning compounds more than your annual appraisals, long term. Over a 15-year career, if you learn, that's going to
You
put you in a
will,
much better place.
you will eventually even out or be better off if you spend more efforts in learning.
Yeah. Now jumping now to a little bit more focused on insurance. I think in your career you've sold, I think, the two big segments, right? Health and life. I wanted to know, over your several years of experience, have you seen the consumer change? Because initially, and I can give you my personal example also. For me, insurance was like too complicated, too boring. Something, I'd call my dad and he'll do it for me. I'll sign some one two things, once a year. But now I think there's so much more adoption happening. I also feel we are all getting really serious as a generation also about health and what's going to be the end outcome, etc., etc. I think it's also a thing of privilege where a lot of the older generation kind of has gotten into a certain sector where now we can actually think, not just to put food on the table, but to really take care of us long term. Is this a fact that consumers are changing? And if so, how has marketing really changed, when it comes to selling insurance to consumers over the last 10-15 years?
So, you know what, Kavan, I think the way I like to kind of answer this maybe is in two parts. One, as you said, from a consumer point of view and, how we've been selling. And one is from the insurance business and the product and service point of view. If you kind of look at a consumer mindset, if you like really go way back, I think India as a nation, we understand savings. So we've been a high saving country. You would see it in your parents, your families. And we had a joint family structures, uh, right? So we really have evolved from that kind of cultural values. So we understand savings very well. We also understand investment, now better, it's always been easy to, sell the concept of investment. You put money here, iska 2x ho jayega, you'll get that much growth. We understand FD, so those things were always, we're a nation of savers. Putting money away for a rainy day, we get that concept. Now I think in this domain when insurance started in life, as you said, and I had the chance to really also be part of the whole life evolution. ING was a startup, also in a way. Manipal Signa was a health insurance startup. So I remember, when we were selling life insurance, we also were selling it as savings because that's what people understood for selling it for savings, selling it for tax purposes as a marketer. Okay, you buy this, you save tax. I mean, and the whole industry was doing that, right? And then also sometimes it was missold as investments. When those whole ULIP plans came in,
Mhm. Yeah.
put money here and you'll make more money. So insurance has also been traditionally sold because of what consumers understand, trying to fit into those buckets,
Right.
sold as a saving, sold as an investment, because selling it as a risk product, a true risk product, which we are now understanding. That means I'm putting this money away, and even if I don't get any of it, that's good. We don't get that concept,
Mhm.
because I've had research, I've spoken to consumers, say मैंने 15,000 दिया था, but I didn't fall sick, तो वो पूरा waste of money हो गया. I think that's been the journey, from the way insurance was sold,
Yeah.
as a saving, as an investment, to it being really sold as a pure risk product and consumers understanding it as such. So I
Mhm.
think that's the evolution, and I would say marketing has played, various roles
Mhm.
along the journey to go with that flow. Also things like financial goals. Insurance has been sold as a goal. So with life goals, meet your life goals,
Yeah.
and so on, which is all fairly true. And because we do realize that the biggest risk to your investment is actually not having a health or a life insurance. Life insurance, from the family continuity point of view, but it is a necessary tool to make sure that you are financially stable. Your growth is going to continue. So I think that's really been an evolution, and we can go on this topic for a long time. The key is that I would say today, where we are right now, I think people do understand the concept of insurance much better.
Mhm.
uh, yeah, and I would say even we've done a lot of research. Millennials and Gen Z getting into the fold, they are catching on to this concept, much more smarter than early stages. And in fact, we've just recently done a campaign targeting
Mhm.
this segment because they don't seem to understand this well. And I think you also mentioned it. So largely, I think it's moved from a push selling, like you always said, insurance is sold, not bought, you know, to a pull kind of a not
Mhm.
100% pull, but more pull. And I think the other phrase we kind of say is that, from a grudge purchase to a nudge purchase. So you grudgingly buy something to now like, oh, you don't have it, and you're buying it. So I think that's the shifts that we are seeing.
I love the grudge to nudge. I've not heard that before. Pretty cool. I want to follow up on the Gen Z aspect. So, we also work with a couple of companies in BFSI, and banking solutions for young people is becoming a big priority as a segment for them. Within insurance, also, let's say if you look at health or life, that's something you may want to decide when you're maybe a little bit older. But is that something which is changing? Do you specifically? I mean, you said you are targeting, younger people. So, what's the outlook there? And are those campaigns like really different as compared to your different TGs, which are maybe folks in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond?
Yeah, so what we are realizing, and I mean, actually, let's even say what we are experimenting. Okay, it's not
Mhm.
something that is 100% there yet. The audience that we are talking to seems to be definitely more connected and understands financial planning as such. So what we're really talking about is that when you're adulting, when you're doing things the first time, the whole concept of adulting, health insurance is a step into adulting. So how do you really kind of make this a part and parcel of your planning? Is the messaging that we are going with, and we are finding a lot of relatable content, people who are voicing back the same opinions. And I would say it's a journey. If you were to ask me, are they my core business audience right now? Probably not. Okay, so the 35 to 45 is still where I'm getting the meat of the bread butter, my new business from.
Yeah.
But the adoption rates, from the early 30s, a 28-year-old, getting married, starting a family is equally encouraging. Post doing this campaign, we had a lot of, our search traffic from this segment has gone up. The website traffic from this segment has gone up. So we are seeing interest, and how much of it does really come out. And I would not say it's something that we expect in year one.
Mhm.
I think it's a continued effort, but very encouraging.
Got it. Got it. Do you think these influencers are a part of why the younger lot is getting more keen with this? Because, like, my exposure to a lot of this jargon was actually through them. I'm on Instagram, I'm scrolling, and suddenly somebody's making a funny skit to teach me about a particular insurance
Yeah.
product, and that gets me, ticking. Sometimes it also tells me, your parents may have made this mistake also while buying insurance, and that I also actually send a screenshot to them, and I get them to have a chat with me. So, do you think they are a part of it? Because there's been a lot of it's a double-edged sword. A lot of marketers say, and there's been a lot of issues in that segment. So, how do you look at them? Do you leverage them? Do you think that what's your outlook towards leveraging influencers and campaigns?
Yeah, so Kaval, we actually work a lot with influencers, and not just in the finance domain, but across domains, because we really want to get health insurance, to their followers. So our approach really has been that of content co-creation, and many of these influencers have a lot of knowledge and very interesting content that they are creating, and they have this very strong loyal following. I think that's very interesting to see. And most of the, our audiences also now, especially in this generation, get a lot of their news, their views are formed not just through print media and other media, but through influencers. So it's it's like a continuous, always on process for us. So we worked with many of the financial influencers. We've also worked with some beauty, skin, fitness, diet, gut health. So there are a lot of specialization that's coming up and very interesting to see, and it's definitely part of our marketing plans.
Very interesting. So you are tapping into the 30-40 age range, or is it the younger lot which helps you with this?
See, I would say that the whole, if you look at the kind of media profile, a lot of the youngsters are on Instagram. So it's not that you have, so a lot of the fan following, if you really break it down, is in the 25 to 40 range. So I think we're using these platforms more for relatable content with this audience. And then we are adding on like a YouTube or other platforms for another audience. So you really have to break your media, uh, and that's what we are experimenting with.
Very interesting. Here, my next question was, whenever you're creating content, either with an influencer or with somebody else, what could happen? And as again, as a viewer of this content of various insurance companies, it's very homogeneous sometimes. Like when
Hmm.
I say health insurance, dekhna hai, there's a lot of jargon there. There's a lot of permutation combinations, a lot of give and get, but they look similar. So if I'm, let's say, a marketer working in the health insurance segment,
Hmm.
how do you feel you can break the clutter? How do you really differentiate? Like, what lever do you pick to differentiate? Is it the offer? Is it the feeling? Is what do you really double down on in your experience? What's worked?
If I really look at the health insurance space, Kavan, I mean, you might say it is very cluttered, and there is a lot of companies out there, which is true, the 27 of us. But if you say that penetration is still, quite low, right? So there's a lot of room, I would say, for everyone uh, in the market. So I think first of all, I don't think there's always going to be an attempt to stand out because it's a market that is enough room for everyone. There's enough growth for everyone. I would really like the category to evolve to that stage. Having said this, as a brand, you do want to differentiate. And for us, for Manipal Signa, I think we've used two key things in a very strong levers, both from a emotional and a product point of view, to differentiate. From an emotional point of view, I think we've always been very authentic to our purpose. So I think as a company, we have really two strong shareholders, which is the Manipal Group and the Signa Corporation, and both of them are partners here for the long run, and with years of experience in running the two different businesses. So having given that, as a board run company, our mission is to really enable, and get the best of health services for our customers. So improve the health and well-being of those we serve. So I think that's like a, really a driving mission for the organization. And the purpose you would see in whatever we do, be it the products that we introduce, the services that we bring to the market, the point of, at the moment of truth at the claim adjudication level, it's always driven by that core thought of being a partner with our customers in illness and wellness. So I think that kind of defines a lot of what we do as a brand. And I think another step forward, if I have to say from point of view of differentiation, is always been around the products that we introduce and the comprehensiveness of the product, the service, and how do we make it easy for our customers to engage with us. So keeping the main purpose at the core, you're looking at offerings around it that keep driving the core, and I think with consistency that plays out. uh, Instead of using a lot of tactical price value, which of course we also do if you're doing a performance month on month campaigns, but I would say timeless marketing or consistency in marketing, being true to the purpose, is how you gradually build a brand in a profitable way.
Got it. Got it. I wanted to unpack a little bit more about the penetration aspect, right? You mentioned that there is low penetration right now. Now, I'm assuming that tier 1, while there might be scope, is something everybody's tapping into. Do you think growth now in your segment or penetration now in your segment will come from tier 2, tier 3? Are those the focus areas, or is it tier 1 itself?
So there's a lot of new unlocking of growth areas. One that we spoke about was the younger segment,
Yeah.
that we spoke about. And as you rightly are now mentioning, it is about the tier 2, tier 3 towns. Yeah, so
Mhm.
that's a great unlock for the industry. And
Mhm.
if I have to talk about penetration, I think the 4-5% is overall India penetration numbers. I'm not taking into the state scheme. If you were to look at metros, the penetration would probably be much higher.
Mhm.
Uh, so definitely your focus markets are tier 2, tier 3 towns, and even we have been kind of doing efforts to expand that. If you really look at your current business, maybe that's stacked differently. But if you're really looking at how the growth is and where do you see potential growth coming from, like how we are seeing potential growth coming from the newer segments of the in terms of the age group, India and Bharat is another scenario like that.
Mhm.
So that's definitely an area that your potential growth could come from. Now, how do you cater to this market? What are the products that you develop for this market? What is the kind of service that you develop for this market? Similarly, like how do you cater to the younger audiences? So
Yeah.
you need to probably, it's not one size fits all. Not in marketing, not in business either.
Yeah.
So it can't be okay, I'm able to sell the same product across the different segments. We need to think of these markets differently, think of the products and services in this market differently, think of the outreach differently. So it's an interesting phase.
So how do you plan the go to market for those geographies, right? Because is it like, I'm assuming it's less digital, more agent led. I'm assuming it's more regional and localization marketing compared to how we do mainline for metros. Just curious to know like what marketing segments or levers are really pushing this growth in tier 2, tier 3.
So as you touched upon it, I think regional and local is the way to go in these towns.
Mhm.
So I can have the same message. I say it in a pattern in a tier one. I have to say it differently in a tier two, tier three. I have, like, for example, even the health insurance maturity is different. In tier one, maybe the conversation is going to be more about what the different kinds of health insurance is. This feature better? Is that a better feature to sell? How much cumulative bonus am I getting? What about copay? So you're having a different stream of communication in this market. Vis-a-vis in another market, you're actually going down and saying, हॉस्पिटल का खर्चा इतना है,
Hmm.
आपने आप अगर 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 ये हो जाएगा तो आप कैसे मैनेज करेंगे? So
Hmm.
you're doing a completely different job there. um, and the media vehicles are different, like you said. I mean, digital surprisingly is all pervasive. uh, Even in tier 3, it's just different platforms and
Yeah.
different influencers. Okay, so last year, interestingly, we did a lot of regional media conferences across zones. So we did a press meet in Bhubaneswar, in Lucknow, and we actually went there and did those interactions. So we actually engage a lot with the local media who are writing, and that's what we've seen actually happen in tier one, because the way the local the journalists write about you, write about the category, how knowledgeable they have become, and trying to bring that kind of knowledge back into tier three, and that's where the interest is. Also, they're all very eager to learn. So we did
Mhm.
a whole series of regional media roundtable conferences, and it's
Okay.
got us tremendous value in terms of the AV value, the coverage that we got. It was very very it went quite well for us. Also, we met a lot of distributors
Mhm.
in this journey, and how they are going about their business,
Mhm.
how what are the kind of content needs they have. So we try to
Mhm.
customize the content, for the local market, and use
Mhm.
a lot of the local, one of our, co-create content with us. So that's been another interesting phase that we are again experimenting with.
I wanted to, ask you, so big challenge in regional marketing, right? And I actually have spoken to quite a few people, and you are adding more validation that it really works. But a lot of people fail in creating good regional content because all agencies and marketers are in Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, and they're trying to talk to somebody in some tier three place. They just are not able to crack the messaging. There's honestly a supply shortage of good people who can execute this. So have you faced that challenge? How do you overcome something like that?
See, the thing is, our content, you're right, is very English, right? We understand Hindi, and then
Yeah.
we add it in, the other left, so it becomes like a English content, very different in South, very different in North. It still works. East, another angle altogether. So yes, it's a challenge, definitely. I mean, getting a basic translation is not difficult,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? That's fine. But if you have to really create an engaging messaging, a relatable piece of content, with that local vibe, the local music, is a different level of work. But I think for that, again, very surprisingly, that when you really go into the market and maybe use your sales and distribution teams as touch points,
Hmm.
and slowly and gradually you do reach that level of, so we have one or two partners that we've kind of worked with to build that for us. But it actually takes a lot of time. So I would say
Okay.
the challenge is that, it's not as fast as, so they're not as savvy enough as as you said, the agencies here.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's an effort that I think we need to put.
So you're basically saying that the best way is to identify like a local creative partner or a local execution partner who gets the context and then kind of executes for you. Is that what you're saying?
I would say it's actually, I mean, what we have done. So I think it's going to be difficult to find a local execution. Like for BTL and all, you'll find a local
Hmm.
execution partner. You can definitely do that. But for content creation, especially for a regulated industry like ours,
Hmm.
where every piece of communication that I send out has to have an IRDI number,
Hmm.
ADVT. I don't think that's really possible. So it has
Hmm.
to still be centralized. But I would say the the validity, or making them part of, making your sales teams a part of content creation, which is still held centrally. So not really passing it on there, but saying, okay, what do you want me to put in something like this? What is the kind of messages you want us to drive? What would work in your market? Would this kind of creative, using the local sales teams as your sounding boards is
Hmm.
when you get a little closer to that content.
Very interesting. Yeah, I think they all have those broadcast messages and they have like one is to one calls with your exact customer. So they'll have a lot better intuition on what works. So that's actually a really good
And
strategy.
I
So how
think
do you do that?
traveling,
Yeah.
and yeah, and also making your own marketing team really travel a lot.
Hmm.
Uh, so
Yeah.
many times when you're sitting in the corporate office, all the marketers think they're having this fancy job, and not really going down to the local markets. I think getting them to travel, getting them to engage uh, with sales teams,
Okay.
with customers, all get us to understand and appreciate that this complex messaging that we are doing, sitting here and thinking everybody will understand, doesn't really work on ground. I
Hmm.
think that appreciation comes if you're not sitting in your desks and working, creating without having any connection with what's going to really happen on ground. I think that's very important.
Got it. Got it. I want to now touch upon, I think, something you've referred to, where you mentioned that it's really going, like selling insurance is really going from like category selling to brand selling. Now, I wanted to ask you, that usually happens when you are in a market which is more mature. But as you said, maybe tier two, tier three is not as mature. Maybe metro is. Maybe a certain portion of age group is not as mature, but certain portion is. So, how do you look at this, right? When do you do category selling? When do you do brand selling? When your audience only is so different from each other?
So we've thought about this a lot. I would say in the last 10 years or so. So initially, if you were looking at the brand, we were selling the concept of health insurance. So we said health hai to life hai. So that was one of the first early lines that Manipal Signa went. We started talking about health insurance zaruri hai. which was again category selling. When we said health के साथ health insurance जरूरी है. So a lot of campaigns that we have done in the past decade have been anchored around category selling. And not only us, a lot of competition, a lot of the market, right?
Correct.
Because that's the way it is. You're selling a generic idea, and then you're kind of getting your brand in. Uh, Over the maybe you would say the last 2 3 years, maybe a lot of post COVID. Let me put it that way, because there the category was being sold on its own. The newspapers, the journalists, I would say even our prime minister was selling the category, right? So we were getting front page coverage on health insurance. He's done I would say a lot of this whole vision of insurance for all by 1947. By 47 2047 is a great initiative. Then the role of brands, and to make the maximum ROI on your investment, is instead of saying why buy health insurance, is buy Manipal Cigna as your choice of health insurance, right? So that's when there's a little bit of a shift in our strategy into why me and why Manipal Cigna. And what we have now been saying is about the whole anchorage of expertise. So we know what are the right products for you, the right product to the right person. Again, coming from our core philosophy of being authentic, and expertise, which is what we launched the latest campaign, which is on expert ki suno, sahi chuno, about making the right choice, because the market has a lot of choices, right? And I think that's how we are differentiating. Coming back to your question, you're right. I would say that it is not that you can always. So, as a brand, that's a position that we've adopted right now. But that same thing could be translated into a different message in a tier three, in a different message, in a different way, in a because I don't think there is a singular thing that is it's become quite challenging. Like a Gen Z is not going to connect with this tone. So we've gone and done some kind of acronyms, which is Mere Choice Ka Health Insurance, adulting. Different. It's a different language. We're talking about the same thing. We're talking about being an expert, health insurance expert, right? We are saying it in one tonality, one caption in one segment. We are saying it another way to make it more relatable in another segment. But you have to be able to link it together. So it's almost like an orchestra actually. So you have to link the whole thing together, so there is there's not noise. So it's still music, but a well orchestrated music, and not disjointed. So I think that's the strategy and planning that you do, so that you kind of able to keep the core, bring different aspects of it out for different segments.
Got it. Got it. You mentioned the campaign with Manoj Bajpayee, right? Which was Expert Ki Suno Sahi Chuno. Love those three ads. At least I think I saw three of them.
Hmm.
I wanted to talk a little bit more about brand campaigns now. So you know, when you're working in at scale like where you are, you usually have a large agency like a TBW. I think you partnered with for that particular one. How does the entire experience go? Maybe there's a young marketing team, trying to hear this out. When is it that you get something like a TBW to kind of come in, and at what level does a brief like this originate from the brand? Is it that a problem statement is thrown and the agency comes back with a creative strat, or you really crack the strategy and then you have them kind of come in and kind of elaborate more on that?
So I would say it's definitely a partnership. I mean, it's not just a very diplomatic answer. It's a genuine answer. I think it's a lot of it's good partnership with a lot of brainstorming and thinking together. Uh, at the core of it, a marketing person is responsible for the outcome, right? And not just the marketing organization. I would say the entire management. So, onboarding a brand ambassador, I don't think is just a marketing CMO's. I think he or she has to build alignment with the entire organization. So that's part A. Now, which brand ambassador, what kind of messaging, how do we, get the best out of the brand ambassador is the partnership with the agency. and you trust their expertise where it counts, right? And and then that's how you'll have a good outcome, because you have to allow people to play the different roles that they are good at,
Mhm.
uh, and then ultimately make sure that what you're doing is value adding for the business. So it's about a push and pull again. So how much where do you leave, where do you draw the strings back, is how do you balance this out. And in our case, if you had to ask us, I think, deciding and onboarding Manoj Bajpayee was decided, I mean, to an extent, and then we roped in the agency, and
Okay.
they helped, chisel the whole story out. But we were already talking and engaging with them in the process also. So, so you have some people, you talk to them, you engage with them, get their thoughts on board, and that's how it worked out for us.
So on the celebrity part, right?
Hmm.
What are the aspects you look at before confirming them? At one point there is obviously their alignment to the brand, how they are perceived by the audience. At the other end, there is, in today's time, their reach, their digital footprint, which can also give you that uptick in your, in your reach. So how do you really balance that? Is it a lot with how many followers they have at the end of the day? How much, or is it more towards how they are perceived by a big set of your consumer set?
All of it covered, all that you mentioned. So, it's a quite like, I mean, I'll just talk to you about our experience, and I'm sure many people would do it in a similar fashion. I think it's an extensive exercise, because it's not some okay. So you have different types of arrangements right now, right? So we're not a brand that we've had a brand ambassador before. So there are a lot of brands who keep having different teams that they work with. I think that's a different scenario. But for us, I think it was really looking at. I would say it started with the brand positioning first. We always didn't want a ambassador to overpower the brand, and that's a lot of Ogilvy learnings and Ogilvy brands that I've grown with. So the brand message or the brand positioning was central, and that of being a health insurance expert. And then who are the people we could work with to take this across India? So then it was a lot of numbers, a lot of the fan following, a lot of shortlists, the costing shortlist models. We even in the middle thought of looking at different regional celebs, and there's a
Mhm.
brand that I've worked on has done something like that well earlier. So I think
Mhm.
we toyed with that idea for a while. Thought it's going to become extremely expensive for us, and we dropped it. So yeah, so I think what worked with Manoj Vajpayee, I think, was for us that you know in the whole his whole portrayal of various roles. And as you said, in the street films, you've seen that aspect. So he can play both kinds, right? He's a great actor, and the whole expertise, brand positioning. I think he was perfect to, as an award-winning actor, to kind of take that through. Also, he wasn't like really much. He wasn't being his face was not so common across various brands. So I think that again stood out for us. Also, the fact that he played a family man role, and that again was very close to where we wanted to be. Uh, so I think those were the things which kind of shortlisted, and and I think he's been great for the brand. And he's done and fantastic films both on the emotional and his quirky side of it. Yeah.
You totally nailed it. I think I really enjoyed the whole vibe of all those ads, which I saw. Plus, it's almost like you're kind of spoofing some other brands. So I love that, and he's great at doing that in a very nonchalant manner.
Yeah, he's
Um,
fantastic. Yeah. So and
um,
he was clutter breaking that way.
Absolutely, absolutely. You mentioned you've not really had a brand ambassador before, and now you do. And that brings me to my question as to when and why do brands decide, "Cat, okay, this is the time I need a celebrity on this campaign"? Is it that it generally gives you better reach or better conversion? Does it build more trust with the customer? And if so, does that mean that if you don't have a celebrity in your content, then you're not able to get that trust with the customer? Like, what's your outlook towards using celebrities and not using them?
Okay, so I think if I have to look at this brand that I'm talking about, which is other Manipal Signa or the various other brands that I've worked at Ogilvy. See, I think I would say the content and the story is definitely above the ambassador.
Mhm.
But in our kind of a business, which is especially a service marketing, we don't have a tangible product.
Mhm.
So you don't have a product, a packaging, a story, and in this scenario, the trust is often, the ambassador helps you with the whole trust and
Mhm.
credibility point of view. That's a credible organization, and that definitely is something which is why we went with the thought of onboarding
Mhm.
a known name. Basically, it's a phase that helps you break the clutter and get you noticed. So getting you
Mhm.
noticed, breaking the clutter, getting you the credibility is much faster.
Right.
Uh, um, Also, I wouldn't say that we are one of the high spenders in media. It's not that we have a high share of voice. So
Mhm.
getting more bang for the media money that you're spending.
Mhm.
Actually, it's so you spend some money here. It's not that you're spending huge millions on media. So whatever you're doing, you're just able to increase the ROI in a way.
Got it. Got it. I think I love that. I think it kind of optimizes your media very, very smartly, because if you see a Manoj Bajpayee, like how I've seen Family Man, you can leverage that, and then that goes ahead and sell a certain product for you. So the click rates will be better and ROI will definitely
And
go pretty
also
high.
how you use them across, like service marketing again is how do you not only use it on ATL or
Mhm.
BTL, every different touch point.
Mhm.
I think that's another whole case study by itself. So how do
Mhm.
you kind of not just leave it at the film, but
Mhm.
make sure that you're leveraging it with personalized videos that your sales channels can send forward, giving them congratulations message. And he was actually great because he helped us really, get that kind of content.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, coming towards the last sets of my questions, um, I think we spoke about creating campaigns, and we spoke about agencies as well. So I think every company has a certain creative production stack, right? In your experience, you must have worked with a bunch of agencies. Um, a lot of agency founders also listen to our podcasts, and as a CMO, I wanted to kind of pick your brain on how do you differentiate between a great agency and maybe a good agency, and how have you awarded more pitches to a certain kind of a founder, right, compared to maybe somebody else? Any tips, any thoughts would be really helpful.
I think there are a lot of great, teams doing a lot of good work these
Mhm.
days, and over,
Mhm.
as you said, over a period of time. I think for me, the one differentiating factor always has been the commitment, and how are you really not just doing this again short term and long term?
Mhm.
uh, how are you able to really understand the brand, partner with the brand, not just come in and say, okay, do this differently, change the world
Yeah.
tomorrow, but how you're able to really build that in is, I would
Right.
say, one thing. Of course, the second thing is the value of the idea. uh,
Mhm.
you know if you have a great thought, a great idea, then all the attitude works. So, it's either, consistency, long term partnership, or if you have that one brilliance, uh, creative brilliance is also uh, very valuable. And I mean, depends on different jobs, right? As a marketer, you have agencies playing different roles. You have some agencies who are working with you, for your constant BAU
Mhm.
kind of project, which is an
Yeah.
always on kind of work, right? There you expect, time. Time is important, efficiency is important, cost is important. Then you
Yeah.
have some partners who you're looking for that added push, the new
Mhm.
idea, the new innovation. So I guess there are different, roles that agency partners play. And I think even as marketers, we would say we would, use different lens to evaluate how you would kind of look at those partners.
Got it. Got it. So, is it safe to assume you work in a manner where you've got like multiple agencies doing multiple levels of work for you in a year? Or is there usually like one AOR which looks at your entire mandate and they usually kind of hold the brand? How does it work?
So we used to have that AOR model till, I would say, 5 years ago.
Okay.
Not anymore. So we have,
Okay.
I would say, partners that
Okay.
we work with.
Mhm,
They are, they're onboarded partners
mhm,
that we engage with. And then, and I mean, and actually we have an in-house studio also now. So a lot
mhm.
of that happens through an in-house studio that we, have developed. And we have partners that we go out for campaigns and, different uh, kind of needs.
So how do you choose, if I'm a marketer, how do you choose what to build in-house as a capacity and what to kind of take outside to an expert?
So a lot of the repetitive jobs, I would say, which is like a constant churn,
Mhm,
uh, uh, where, I would say that you could, I'm talking from our perspective, is what over a period of time we are kind of bringing more, in-house within our
mhm,
studio, within our capability. I would
mhm,
say new ideas, new concepts, something which is a new market, like I
mhm,
spoke about. Those are
mhm,
areas which are, if you're looking at another partner. So for a lot of the, always on repetitive product
yeah.
marketing, product design, brochures, collaterals, we have, we have partners where we now overall developed also an in-house capability, but
Mhm.
always get supplemented, if by a partnership, if that doesn't work through.
Got it. Got it. Super. Thanks a lot for that, Sapna. I'm going to ask you my last question now,
Yeah.
and that's obviously I think something everybody's talking about, which is about AI, right?
Oh, there you are
Um,
again. Yeah.
now I think there's a lot of chatter. I think it's a topic everybody is given a lot of thoughts on. What I wanted to know from you is is there some chatter around which you disagree with, where hey, maybe this is not going to happen in AI, how people are predicting it, and are there any outcomes you feel are a definite which people should watch out for? If you could unpack that, would be really cool.
So I would say, yeah, I've been a lot part of a lot of panels too. I mean, definitely buzz of the day, which is on Gen AI, how it's going to affect marketing. What are the, what's really going to happen? Are we going to have job losses? Will marketing cease to exist? Uh, and more like that. So I don't see AI as being a doomsayer, or it's the end of the world.
Mhm,
I see it as a great enabler.
mhm,
I also see it as a step up for our current marketeers to
mhm,
higher skilled jobs. So I would say the idea of creative idea and the strategy, I don't think an AI can really take that away from you. So we need to kind of upskill,
mhm,
understand that, and push the envelope on the ideation process, on the strategy, on alignment with business. I think that becomes
mhm,
core. And a lot of the non-core jobs, which you would probably spend a lot of time on, it actually
mhm,
frees you up to do
mhm.
a lot of the core jobs.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of the repetitive analysis, brainstorming, basic content creation is just much faster.
Right.
So I think we need to really, learn that, and move with it, and take it as part of the journey. So basically, Kavan, what I'm thinking is that marketeers need to now learn to live with AI, learn to kind of enable
Mhm.
AI for their own benefit, and focus on the core, which is ideation and strategy. Yeah.
Superb, superb. I think I completely agree here. A lot of times marketing people enter into learning more about the core first principles of campaigns, creativity, efficiency, and strategy, but they end up doing a lot of chore work. So I think we finally can visualize a few years where we'll actually get to just do that. In fact, that's what you need to build on, because everything else can be delegated to like an AI intern. You know so love that answer, and super relate to that. Thanks for that, Sapna. This brings us to the end of our podcast. I hope you had a good time.
Yes, Kavan, thank you so much. Interesting conversation. I hope you found it useful too.
Brilliant. Oh,
Thank you.
it's like I think a lot of insights
Thank
over a
you.
year, over 1 hour. After I think 20 years of experience, so I think always fun to speak to.
I said I'm still learning, so the experience is only about more learning.
Awesome.
Okay.
That's a great way to end, and thanks a lot for your time. I really appreciate you taking out an hour. I know you have a very busy schedule. So really appreciate that. And for everybody who's stuck along so far, thanks for tuning in. And if you want to hear one more expert, one more CMO talking about a very unique industry, do like, share, and subscribe. In the next few days, we'll have another marketing leader coming very, very soon. So thank you so much and have a great time.
Thanks a lot, Kavan. Take care.